Good morning, everyone. We're here for the Sunday Mindset session. Absolutely pumped because I'm in Brisbane to sit by Tony Meredith's side, the great man doing some amazing things. Just been down to the Hunter Valley for a massive conference. Maybe before we get into the topic, Tony, why don't you share some insight from the conference?
Yeah, great. So it was an industry. Firstly, thank you, mate. Thank you for coming here in sunny Queensland. It's amazing.
It's absolutely pouring down rain.
It's not sunny.
For the last 3 days.
It's not sunny at all. And I know that's happening down the eastern seaboard. So down the Hunter Valley this week, it was a terrific conference. It was an industry and manufacturing conference. Learned heaps of stuff, met great people. I was fortunate enough to do a keynote speech on mindset of all topics. So for those who've been watching us for a while, you know that we always talk about this. So I was able to talk about that to a whole range of industrial and manufacturing people and get them to think very differently around leadership. It's interesting that, you know, they came up with the top 10 things that leaders need to consider moving forward. And I was just saying to Luke off air that a number of them relate to what we've been talking about for years around self-awareness, self-care, growth.
Finally, people are listening.
Yeah, we're becoming cool. We're becoming trendy, Luke.
Well, these words are coming out more and more. You hear it in just general conversation now.
Correct.
Like people are talking about mindset and fears and things like that. Good morning, Tony Gallagher. Good to have you on. We are talking today about overcoming fears.
Yeah, absolutely.
I actually met at a wedding last night that I attended an organizational psychologist.
Wow.
Who actually checks over people in leadership roles around the country. So, it's just interesting to hear from people at that level of what they've done over the last 20, 30, 40 years of their working lives. And now all that stuff is now in vogue. So he vets people in higher leadership roles.
And people in high leadership roles still suffer from fear, right? So we all do. And it's interesting because, whether it be a difficult employee conversation, having to make a decision that may affect the shareholders or the share value, etc. Like there's an enormous amount of responsibility, but also an enormous amount of fear that comes from a lot of these decisions. And quite often a lot of leaders, they're like ducks. It's appropriate to talk about on a rainy day, but they look calm on the surface, but they're frenetic, calm above the surface, but frenetic under the surface. Struggling from the same stresses, pressures. Anxieties, fears that we all do.
Yeah, I guess, we don't realize. We always think that the celebrity or the highly successful business person is like untouchable and they're like, almost like Teflon. But they have the same things going on as we do. And then if we're not working on our mindsets on a daily basis, then we might be in a position to fall foul of this and maybe in a position to just like chuck in the towel.
Yeah, look, absolutely. And I mean, take it one step further. Sadly, a lot of celebrities take their own life, so just because they're rich, they're famous, they seem to, on the outside, to have it all on the inside. And, which we focus on. It's an inner game. Life is an inner game. Business, your career is an inner game. Clearly they don't have it all, and sometimes it's too late. Sometimes, people are able to intervene and help out. And, where you used to volunteer at Lifeline was a great one for that. But, you certainly don't want to get caught up in the fact that someone has a leadership role or they're rich or they're famous. Hey, they must have it all together. I would argue, in fact, quite the opposite.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi to David and Mum who have come on as well. Love to know about your fears. What are some of even the little things that you just like really struggle to get across the line for yourself? And I know in terms of making phone calls is one area that's often a big one for us in business, running small businesses. And I'm sure you have conversations around, picking up the phone, making that one call and then making that second call. And even when the rejection comes back, you keep progressing forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Fear of public speaking is a big one, and I remember back, I've been publicly speaking for a long time and I've also get a few butterflies in the belly now. And I think it's a good thing because it grounds me. It makes me focus on what I'm about to do, but it's nowhere near to the same extent that it used to be when I first started publicly speaking some, 15 or so years ago. I remember I would be paralyzed with fear. I would just be awash with anxiety. And I was talking about it during my speech during the week and the fact that, I kept leaning into it. I would be stuttering, I would be fumbling, I would be stumbling, I would be absolutely petrified, and I'd do it. And every time I do it, I'd remind myself that I wasn't in danger. And that's the reason why it happens, because our mind is constantly looking for dangerous situations. And so in our minds, what we've gone and done is we've conjured up that we're in danger when we're publicly publicly speaking. And the reason why we think that is because we have this fear of being criticised by other people. I'm going to say the wrong thing, look silly, stumble on my words, whatever it might be. And because I'm worried about what others might say, do, or think about me, then I'm letting that affect me. And that used to really affect me, but it's something that I've worked heavily on over many, many years. And, I know a lot of people who publicly speak, they spend a lot of time behind the scenes. It's no different to sports. You know what I mean? Like we've got the World Cup in rugby league at the moment. We've got the World Cup in cricket at the moment. And these guys are spending an enormous amount of time on the training paddock, behind the scenes, refining their craft. Well, it's no different when you speak.
Didn't help the Australian cricket team last night.
They were woeful. They were absolutely woeful, right? So they need to do some more training. But I suppose,
well, maybe it's a case that training in terms of cricket playing is okay, but it's the mental side.
100% it is, and quite often you'll see professional footballers, for example, with the Aussie rules or in rugby league, and they'll miss a kick, they'll shank the kick, and it'll be something that, excuse me, in a training paddock without pressure. They'd get it 10 times out of 10, but you put them in that situation, the game's on the line, a minute left, whatever it might be, and some people revel in that, and others go to water, and it's not.
But at the same time, Michael Jordan's famous line about, I've had the game-winning shot many occasions, and it's only the ones we see on TV or in replays that actually get shown.
The ones he gets in, correct?
Yeah, and he's missed so many times.
But that's called courage, right? So it's the courage to say, and the confidence to say, give it to me. Give it to me, regardless of what's going on. I want that ball in the dying seconds of the game, and whether I get it in or not. Now, obviously, he got it in more times than he didn't, and which is why he's arguably the greatest. But the point is that even if he missed, he kept saying, well, next time, give me the ball. I want it again. So it's a confidence thing, there's a courage thing, and an absolute determination to win, a single-minded focus on victory.
All right, let's get into some of the items here. Yes. What is your current experience with fears? I guess having that self-awareness, you talked about it earlier, and with business leaders and some of the talks that went on at your conference. But really having that self-awareness about what are your current fears, and, is it tough to actually pick up the phone and wonder if someone is going to actually reject you from that call?
Well, it could be one. The big one that came up, Luke, given it was all about leadership, is around having difficult conversations with employees. That kept coming up time after time after time. And so, leaders in the room reluctant to be honest with someone and provide good, honest feedback. They wanted to, soften the edges, not be as direct. And that's something you've got to lean into, right? And obviously there's a how you do it, but it's a case of, if you want your employee to be the best version of themselves, then as a leader, your opportunity is to provide them with the clarity on what's working, but also what they can improve on. Because how do I improve if you don't let me know that I need work in certain areas, right? So there's an overcoming of a fear thing, and there's also then a self-awareness or an awareness, not self-awareness, but an awareness thing by saying to the employee, hey, look, these are the 3 areas that you're flying in, but these are the 3 that I'd really like you to think about. And hey, let's now create a plan to help you move forward.
Are they actually shelving that off to a HR department or a supervising boss, or are they actually taking it on themselves to do that?
Yeah, so a combination of both. So some are looking to do a handball, but then others are doing it themselves, but they're doing it poorly. They're doing it poorly because they're not being upfront and honest, and that lack of honesty, that lack of awareness, leads the employee to think, well, I must be doing a good job, and when in fact there's certain areas that they may need to improve in. And again, why is there a fear? Well, there's a fear that the employee is going to have a crack back at them, right? There's a fear of being pushed back or some challenge, etc. There's a fear of not wanting to hurt that person. Maybe that person's going through some tough times, whatever it might be. So I just want to wrap my arms around them. I don't want to talk about the areas of improvement. And so we through a mission, we don't say anything. And of course, we don't say anything. Then another saying of mine comes in, which is the standard you walk past is the standard you set. So if we don't say something, then through a mission, by not saying it, then you're actually saying it's okay. And so it's very important to reinforce that message throughout the course of the week.
Yeah, absolutely. We want to just have that self-awareness around it. I know in terms of investing in at the wedding last night, obviously having conversations about what we do and how we progress. And, debt is a big fear for a lot of people. So, talking through that, it's just doing that mind shift around, what debt is and what it can be, how it can be serviced, and what you can potentially do. So the fears are sometimes not real, right? So if you get debt and it's serviceable and you can manage it, well, is there more of a fear on not doing it than doing it?
Yeah, correct.
As well. Like we know in property, if you buy that property in over 20 years, it doubles or triples or whatever it might do, then the wealth is there and you've created that, I guess financial security, that wealth, that abundance, but, so restrictive. And we've been taught that way of like, fearing some of these things, but are the fears real?
Yeah, well, so they're not real is the honest answer. So as humans, we're only born with two fears. So a fear of falling and a fear of loud noises. And so all the other fears that we have conjured up in our mind. It might be through our parents, or maybe our parents had a view that debt was bad in the example that you're referring to, Luke. And so if a parent keeps telling you as a young child that debt is bad, debt is bad, debt is bad, well, if it's told to you enough times, that it must be true, right, even though it's not true. And so it's a case of recognising that, yes, there are, speak to the experts, get other points of view, challenge your current thinking. So just because you're thinking it or believing it at the moment doesn't mean that it's true, because always remember that in the middle of the word belief is a three-letter word, which is L-I-E, which is lie. And so we have two fears that we're born with, everything else we've made up. And if we've made them up, we can unlearn them. So if we've learned them, we can unlearn them. And so it's a case of recognising that, how do I reframe that? So debt, for example, debt provides me leverage. Debt allows me to do things that I perhaps haven't been able to do because it's going to take me forever to save up that money to go and, buy something outright versus borrow some monies, use that as leverage, and it allows you to go and do the things you want to do.
It's always really interesting when you're shifting or doing that mind shift around, like, I guess the debt example, and you're just making people think, it's like, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
It's always that interesting conversation that you have with people, and it's like you challenge their status quo.
Yeah, because they've got a frame of reference, and so their frame of reference is whatever it is, right? Again, parents, teachers, etc. And so now you're coming from a different frame of reference. You're an expert in your field, so on and so forth. So, it may take some time to shift them totally, but at least you start to get them to think. Like you're saying, it's like you get to see this physical change. It's like, this aha moment. It's like, you know what? And so, maybe here's some readings for you. Go and listen to this podcast, or go and follow this particular person. Start to then open your mind up to different ways of doing things. But it comes down to the meaning that we place on things. On a day like today in Brisbane being overcast and rainy is a great one. And I used it as an example on Thursday at the start of my speech, where I said, because it was raining down there, and I said, who had negative thoughts about the weather this morning? Half the room's hands went.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah, and then
everyone loves talking about the weather,
right?
Don't they?
But then my follow-up question was, leave your hand up if you're in control of the weather. Right? Of course, everyone's hand goes down. So no one's in control of the weather. And the point is that we get ourselves into a negative state of mind by something we have zero control over. Like
That's a good way to start.
I've been doing this for a while, mate. But the point is...
Just instant engagement. That's what Tony Meredith is all about. This is why we're lucky to have him. I'm lucky to have him here as well. It's just like impact straight away.
Yeah, 100%, because we get caught up, Luke, in so many things that are beyond our control. And it affects our state of mind. So there'll be all sorts of people up and down the eastern seaboard today where the rains are. We're going to roll out of bed and have a negative mindset right from the outset because it's a rainy, doomy, gloomy day. But there'll be other people who wake up today and go, well, isn't it lovely that it's, might be, water in the garden? Isn't it lovely that it's cooling things down? It should be hot in October in Queensland, and it's not. So there's just different frames of reference, but it's about recognising that, yes, what meaning am I placing on things? And back to Luke's example, what meaning am I placing on debt? What meaning am I placing on property? There'll be so many people who go, oh my gosh, property is a mug scale. I'm going to get involved in shares. And again, it comes back to your parents, your teachers, all these beliefs that you've formed in your life.
Absolutely. Even when I talk about the comparisons in between that, it's like, well, if you're a shares person, just go do shares because that's where your passion leads.
Yeah.
You probably end up losing on property because your passion doesn't lie there. So that's an important one. Second item we want to talk today, and David says, good morning, Tony and Luke, is what do we see other people doing and what can we learn from them?
Yeah, so firstly, when it comes to fears, one of the things is to recognise that someone has already done what it is that you're wanting to do. And I use the example.
Took the words right out of my mouth.
I use the example of no, we're just in sync.
Oh, I
mate.
know.
Even more so when we're here in the flesh
Just
together.
like this mental
Oh,
telepathy
yeah,
going
correct.
across.
I use the example of Roger Bannister. In '56 he broke the 4-minute mile, and I mean that was an amazing feat in itself. But what was even more amazing for me, and which I focused on in my story, was that a month after, I think 6 weeks after he broke that, an Aussie, John Landy, broke the same record, and then a year after Roger Bannister had broken the 4-minute mile, the first 3 place getters in a race all broke the 4-minute mile. And so here is this, this event, this milestone, the 4-minute mile. They were saying at the time, no one can do it, no one will be able to do it, it won't happen, blah, blah, blah. One person does it, and then all of a sudden, these other people start to go, well, if he can do it, so can I. And so the point for everybody here, and the question is, what do we see other people doing? How can we learn from them? We can learn from them because they've gone before us. So whatever your goal is, find someone who has done what you're trying to do. What did they do? What processes did they do? What routines did they do? How did they approach it? Like, learn from them. And in my world, from a coaching point of view, we call that success factor modeling. So success factor modeling is around, how do I model what that person has done, and how can I then apply that to what I'm trying to achieve here with my similar goal?
Sean says, good morning. Is something wrong with my phone, or there's no split screen? We're actually both in Brisbane. I'm actually up in Brisbane at the moment, Sean. So enjoying, so there's definitely no split screen happening here. It's not merged. It's actually in the flesh, in live. It's great to be up here in Brisbane. I did come up for some warmer weather, but that aside, I'm having a great time.
Not here this week. No.
Having an absolute great time, absolute cracker. So I think it is about learning from other people and what they've done, and really focus on, if someone can achieve it, so can I. When I ran my marathon, I'm just like, well, I've seen other people do it, and even people close to me, right? So that has even more belief.
But even with your daily running, right? So
Yep.
I know that you often talk about a gentleman, I think he's here in Brisbane. He's run like so many more days.
Yeah, 3,000,
3,000, right? So here's Luke. We're all sort of, admiring what Luke does, and Luke's at 1,750, which is phenomenal, whatever the number is. But yet, even for Luke, there's a guy who is further down the road.
Well, he gave me more belief. Like
Correct.
after the first year, I was going to stop it. Just thought maybe my ankles and knees won't be that good, and maybe you should try something different, and maybe do some yoga or something like that.
Yeah.
And then someone told me about this guy, and I'm like, well, if he can get 3,000, and I didn't know about these running streaks that people have. Like some people have gone 40, 50 years of running at least 1 mile every day. So it's a little bit of a US based thing, but there are records of people, and people are in the list. I'm number 13, or I'm number 152 in order of running streaks around the world. So when I saw this guy from Brisbane and his accomplishments, he's lost over like 60, 70 kilos in the process, right? So amazing achievement.
Yeah.
And, he keeps pounding the pavement.
But like you said, if he can, I can. And so take that example of Luke and apply it to whatever you're trying to do. If someone else can do what you'd like to do, then you too can do the same thing. I shared the story of Ned Brockman. You heard of Ned? Ned was the young guy who ran.
Oh, Perth, sorry. I just watched a video yesterday. Yeah.
Perth to Sydney, which is astonishing. And the point that I wanted to focus on is he had a goal to do this in 43 days, I think he said. And he did it in 47. And the reason he did it in 47 was that on day 12, he injured his foot and his ankle. And so he couldn't flex his foot and his ankle. And he had a team with him, so his parents and his girlfriend was there, and he had a physio with him. And he said, well, what have we got to do? My ankle's buggered. We're on day 12. We're only just partway into the journey. And they said, well, mate, the best option is 6 weeks of rest, right? And he's gone, but I'm in the middle of this charity run, 6 weeks of rest. And so he said, which is my favourite 5-word phrase, which is, what else can I do? Right? What else can we do? And they said, well, mate, listen, he kept challenging the team. What else can we do? We've got to keep going. Like stopping for 6 weeks is not an option. And so they then gave him some cortisone injections. They rigged up a rubber band around his bootlaces to hold his foot up, and then he continued for the rest of the run, which is phenomenal.
That's
right?
incredible, eh?
It's incredible.
You just think about I've heard situations where you think you've done, you're only 35%.
Yeah, exactly.
There, you're only actually, you could go, there's another 65% still in the tank.
Absolutely.
We don't realize as human beings how powerful we are, how strong we are, how resilient we are. If we just give it a go. And this guy is just obviously,
it's amazing. And it's our mind that holds us back, right? Which is why we do what we do, is constantly holding us back. Look, his mind was playing tricks on him, throughout the course of the run, as it would, running
100 Ks a day,
running in a straight line.
A lot of thinking time.
Absolutely. But what he did, which is really fascinating, and applies to what we talk about here, Luke, often, is if his mind was playing tricks on him, he would break down to the next 20 kilometres, or it might be the next 10 kilometres, or the next 5 kilometres. And even he said at some stages, he was saying, I've just got to do one more K. And they'll go and reset, and I'm just going to do one more K. And it's interesting. So on the Tuesday morning, the opening keynote presenter of the conference I was at, he was talking about that in Heathrow Airport, which is one of the world's busiest airports, the air traffic controllers, you've got all these planes flying around, hovering around, waiting to come and land. But the motto is just land the next plane, right? And so it's just the next one. Don't worry about the fact that there's 200 circling and whatnot. I've just got to get the next one down. And so that applies from a goals point of view, from whatever you're trying to do, just do one more, the next one. And I just love the fact I heard that, Ned Brockman, and so many people are just saying, just break it down into bite-sized chunks.
Well, I'm doing that every day on my run. Like, I get out in the first K and it's like, okay, I've got 6 Ks to go. But then I go, okay, K number 2, K number 3. And, it is just that one.
Yeah,
it's just so important. Tony Gallagher said Ned raised over $2 million for homeless. So super achievement.
Oh, looking incredible, incredible guy. And I saw plenty of commentary around the fact that he should be our Australian of the Year. I couldn't agree more. He should be the Australian of the Year. Really inspirational. The whole monetary side, but for me, beyond that, look, that's awesome, and that's going to help people get off the streets. But for me, the mental side is the bit. Obviously, we talk about mindset every Sunday. It's that it's the mental side.
Look, hopefully, you can inspire some of the homeless to do something. In terms of for themselves, potentially to, have that story and have money go towards helping people. It's just the inspiration that he's given, hopefully, so many people. Sean said, more of us need to understand we're made of stardust and underneath is pure energy.
Correct. Yeah.
And Tony said, and remember, you got this.
Yeah, so we're, so my daughter and I, our little thing at the moment is we've been watching some shows on dog behavioural training, right? We've got a little puppy, and we're wanting to have a better behaved dog. She's pretty good. And so one of the key things, just going on Sean's point before, is that the dog trainer talks about you need to hold your energy, you need to hold your space. And it's amazing how dogs, they sense the fear. And so watching this episode the other night where the owner would start to get quite anxious. And the moment that she got anxious, then the dog would go out and attack whoever was nearby because he thought that she was scared, and so the dog wanted to attack. And so it's about holding your space. And going to Sean's point, we are energy, right? We are all energy. I have an energy coach, right? And it's about being conscious of what's going on from an energy point of view, because it makes one hell of a difference.
What's your energy like on a Sunday morning?
It's normally shot.
Why is that, Tony?
I just like to relax on a Sunday morning. So, but I mean, that's early on a Sunday morning. Obviously, then we get into this and I get hyped up and get on with the day. But certainly, getting out of bed on a Sunday morning, I won't lie. And particularly on a day like today, it's nice to sort of stay under the dirt. It's a bit overcast and raining and whatnot. I like the sound of the rain on the roof.
Don't you know, Pump It Up, mate? Don't you know, Pump It Up? It's a great song.
I know it. Don't you know, Pump It Up?
I'm probably high of energy right now because we were just like dancing, singing, and being jovial last night at a wedding I attended. Yeah, well, I felt like it. Probably looked like it too as well. Third item we want to talk about, Tony, is what work can be done to bring you closer to overcoming those fears?
So much work can be done. So the first thing is always self-awareness. That's the first thing. It was interesting. This came up from the leadership point of view, but it's about being self-aware. You can't change what you're not aware of. So start to recognise that, when are you operating from a place of fear? And then when you recognise you're operating from a place of fear, take some time to think about, what specifically is that fear? maybe where did it come from? Did it come from my parents? Did it come from the fact that I made a mistake previously and I think that I'm going to make that mistake ongoing? The next is to recognise that it's BS. I said it before. We're born with two fears. Everything else we've made up, and so it's BS. And so it's about recognising that it's not true. Then it's about going through a process of starting to change it. So the first step in the process is to create an empowering belief, which is 180 degree the opposite of your fear. So if you have a fear of public speaking, then the empowering belief is I love public speaking. I love to share my message. I want to be able to, provide my gift to the world.
Think greater than you feel.
100%. Right. The next one is then around start to act as if, which is a little bit of fake it till you make it. And interestingly, the presenter on day one talked about do then be. So you just have to put your left foot in front of your right. You don't always start with belief. You don't always start with confidence, but you just have to do. And by doing, you then come out the other side. So I remember when I first started speaking in front of people, I would be awash with anxiety, awash with fear, and I would do my speech. And at the end of my speech, I would go, I'm still alive. No one's heard me. You know what I mean? And so I just started to change my frame of reference. So it's about start to act as if, but this other guy summed it up beautifully, which is do. So do something, and so you can then be whoever you're trying to be. And the last one then is about creating evidence of success. Happens in two ways. The first way, we talk about this most weeks, is start small. Do one thing. If you haven't run for a long time, if you'd like to get into running, for example, run 100 metres, run 200 metres, whatever is your thing, just get started, come back, pat yourself on the back and go, I did 200 metres today, and then obviously look to build on that over time. So that's the first one. But the second one around create evidence of success is we've talked about it earlier, which is other people's success. So that is, how do I then go and someone else did what I want to do, so how can I go and emulate what it is that they did? Or within our lives, we have overcome certain fears, certain anxieties. So, it might be that when you were younger, you were confronted with something and you leant into it and you did it. And so the point is then, what can I take from that moment? Because I did it. It might have been 5 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever it might have been. And how can I then take some of the things that were going on for me there and apply that to what's going on for me in October of 2022. So there's a real process. More than happy for people to reach out. I'm happy to send you something through just to help you specifically with those steps. But there is a framework to follow to help you overcome your fears.
Absolutely. I've seen people talk about, going to the gym, and most people will get out there and are like, I want to lose all that weight. I want to have it happen. I'm going to do a half an hour session or an hour session and just pump it out and just go hard. And I heard this guy speak, and it was like, first session that he had, someone he was training, 12 minutes. Next day, 12 minutes.
Yeah.
By end of week one, he increased that to 16 minutes.
Yeah.
So it is, I guess, building that muscle.
Of course it is.
Literally. And just working on how you can improve for the long term. And if you try to rush it into it and try and take the quick wins, the longevity won't be there.
No.
This is where it gets yo-yoed.
Well, I call it the January the 1st effect.
Yeah.
Every January the 1st. It happens, it's coming up to January shortly in the next few months. Every January the 1st, we've had a belly full of booze the night before. We've got all these grandiose ideas, things we're going to do. We get out of the gates filled with gusto, filled with enthusiasm. And by the third week in January, I can see it on the screen, we go fall into a heap. Right, versus what you're saying is start small, build on it. Are you aware that if you go from 12 minutes to 16 minutes, that's a 33% increase? That's massive, right? So that's massive in anyone's language. And so it's a case of just start wherever you are and then gradually increase your efforts over time. Far more sustainable, far more successful, and you'll surprise yourself. You'll look back
and you'll overcome these fears.
100% you will.
Well, look at kids, right? Riding a bike for the first time.
Yeah.
They're fearful about, falling off.
Yeah, they are. So they are fearful of falling off, but then they keep going. They keep going because they have. Why do they keep going? Well, in the most cases, because they have this drive and determination to want to be able to do it. Maybe my bigger brother or bigger sister is doing it, and I'd like to be able to keep up with them, and so I've got to keep going. And so we have this fear, but then we keep doing it. We fall over, we scuff our knees, we get back up, right? And what we don't do as adults is we tend not to challenge ourselves to get back up. Whereas as kids, we get back up, right? And so it's because whilst we have a fear, we don't have a lifetime worth of fears that we do as adults. And so, we've allowed all these things to get in and affect our way of thinking. And so it's about, we've got to get back up. And the whole idea is that if you get up one more time than you've been knocked down, you win. Like, you might get knocked down 30 times, but if you get up on that 31st occasion, you're the winner. And so it's about recognising that what have you got to do to keep going, to lean into the fears that are holding you back. Because this is the biggest thing that holds people back, Luke, is fear.
It is, absolutely. It's a great session today. Good to be here in the flesh in Brisbane with Tony. We made it a point of coming to meet up, and even the weather didn't stop him from coming out. Did me a favour this morning after a late night. Thought it was going to be a late one. Well, it ended up being the same. This last few months have been creating steady wins after steady wins alongside with our growth. It's all just a countdown of having them hit the accounts in abundance and be able to fix last year's problems more and more, one day at a time, bit by bit. Well done, Sean. Well said. And it is bit by bit. So,
and the thing with Sean's situation is he's just getting up one more time. He had a challenging year in 2021, as a lot of people did for differing reasons, and he's getting up one more time. And he's determined, him and Kelly are determined to go and, make a difference, right the wrongs, and keep moving forward. Because if they stop, right, here's the reality. If you stop, well, that's it, game over, right? Versus, he's got a great mindset. It's like, I've got to keep going. Yes, bad stuff's happened, but I've got to keep going, keep moving forward, because I've got bigger dreams, bigger goals, for myself. And like you said earlier, I've got to think greater than I'm feeling. And sometimes we feel like crap, but it's like, I've got to keep going. I've just got to keep pushing myself forward. So well done, Sean. Thank you for sharing.
Absolutely. And hopefully, we've all got these fears, and, and even Tony and myself, in terms of a level up from where we are right now, there's going to be some fear and nervousness around that. We just want to work on ourselves each and every day to move us forward to challenge those fears.
That's it. That's what it's all about. I love it. Fantastic. Great to have you here, mate. I'm sorry we couldn't have done better with the weather and the sunshine.
It's been a really good week. So,
that's good.
A little bit of rain, hey, doesn't dampen my mood.
When are you heading home?
Tomorrow.
Okay, great. All right, well, there we go. So Sean, we're back to split screens next weekend, but this weekend, the technology has brought us together.
The technology has definitely brought us together. Don't know what this guy's all about. All right, bye for now. Happy Sunday.